Back in 2016, I remember playing Minecraft for the first time. I created my first survival world and immediately fell in love with the game as it generated before me. As a kid, this massive, fully explorable open world was nothing short of a miracle, with something to discover around every corner. A couple years later, I got into game development, and naturally, I tried to create an open world like Minecraft. And that didn't go too well. Since then, I've moved on to a sci-fi FPS I'm currently developing, and all the while, I've always wanted to create an open world. And so I did. Basically, all we need to do is make an open world. So how exactly do we do that? Like, I'm asking. From what I've seen in other games, we need 4 different things. We need terrain, vegetation, a skybox, and points of interest, which I'll save for the end of the video. Terrain in Unity is fairly simple. With a couple clicks, you can create a terrain component, which can then be sculpted, textured, and covered with vegetation. With the terrain basically figured out, we need some vegetation to put onto it. For trees, I've been using a really awesome nature pack, which comes with a variety of tree types. Now, although the nature pack also comes with some grass, I decided to create a custom solution with some sprites. Unfortunately, as I discovered the hard way, grass is actually a bit of a tricky thing to deal with. If you don't optimize it, well, it doesn't exactly play the best. So, to make it run well, you can make the grass the same color as the ground and fade it out in the distance. After applying a little bit of variation to the color of the grass, I was also able to achieve this patchy effect, which weirdly reminds me of those really thick rugs. But anyways, we've got terrain, trees, and grass. The next thing I decided to do was try and create some water. I've always been a big fan of water in video games, and if done properly, it can look absolutely beautiful. So, after watching some tutorials, I was able to achieve a decent water effect. I still think I can do better, especially after watching Svorbishy's video, where he made an open world for his own indie game. And just look at how beautiful the water in his game looks. Like, I just want to drink it. But okay, if we combine everything we've made so far, we get a nice little taste for the direction we're headed in. But we're still missing something. Whenever I look at other open worlds, the thing that really catches the player's attention is size and verticality. Making a large open world isn't that difficult. You just make a big piece of terrain and hope you optimize it enough. Verticality is an entirely other problem. You might be wondering why I don't just sculpt the terrain with mountains and big changes in elevation if I want verticality. Well, that's because it looks absolutely terrible. After looking at games like Genshin Impact though, it becomes fairly obvious that verticality can be achieved with the rocks and cliffs that define the changes in elevation much better than by sculpting them in manually. Now, honestly, I wasn't excited about modeling a ton of different rock and cliff variations, but luckily, there's no need to worry. Thanks to AI, I can now actually prompt the generation of 3D assets, specifically with the help of Meshi, who have kindly sponsored today's video. Meshi is the #1 AI tool for 3D creators, up there with things like ChatGPT. So, I quickly got onto Meshi, clicked Text to 3D, and prompted Meshi to generate some stylized rocks and cliffs. In less than a minute, Meshi generated 4 different variations for me. From here, you can proceed to use Meshi's AI texturing, but I ended up downloading the models directly into Unity, and I used my own custom rock shader to get this triplanar effect. But believe it or not, we're only scratching the surface of what Meshi can do. It can generate models from pictures, rig and animate its own humanoid models, and you can even download any of the models created by other users. To make things even better, Meshi can be downloaded as a plugin for Blender, Godot, Unity, and even Unreal Engine. You can start using Meshi for free with the link in the description. But yeah, with the help of the many rock and cliff assets Meshi was able to generate, I was able to play around with verticality in a way that didn't look absolutely terrible. To finish off this little test scene, I added some particle systems like fireflies, falling leaves, and god rays to really bring everything together. But okay, this is where things really start to get cool. I spent about 2 weeks combining everything we created so far, and by the end of it all, we had created this. Now don't you dare think I succeeded the first time. I failed so many times that I'm honestly just glad I made it to the end. And just a quick detour, some of you might be wondering about the graphics and how I'm able to make this map look the way it does. Well, let me tell you a little secret. I'm developing this video game in Unity's built-in render pipeline. From a graphics perspective, this is the worst version of Unity, a game engine that isn't exactly known for its 3D graphics in the first place. So, how do I make my game look like this? Well, take a look at this. If we disable every single visual effect that is active, the game looks a little bit more like this, and it's pretty hideous. Now let's add some lighting, some post-processing, and what about a little bit of fog? In my experience, graphics almost entirely comes down to tweaking the little settings for these three things, plus a little bit of color theory. But okay, we've spent so long creating this massive open world, but there's still nothing to do. Now, obviously I haven't yet created enemies, but I at least want to create points of interest, where the player will eventually engage in combat, solve puzzles, and experience some actual gameplay. So what exactly do we want these points of interest to look like? I originally had a ton of ideas for things like abandoned villages or ancient ruins or little campsites, and I even used Meshi to get some 3D models for these areas. The problem with these ideas though was that they required me to create entirely new environments and models, which was just a little bit outside the scope of this game. Instead, I decided to take advantage of the sci-fi style we've already established and just use that to create the points of interest. So, I started with the entrances to these areas, kind of just neatly tucking them into cliffs, under the terrain, and even behind waterfalls. For now, I also made these beacons which help the player actually find these points of interest. But yeah, after spending a couple hours, the entrance areas to a couple of the points of interest were completed. However, the rest of the map still felt empty. So, I hopped back onto Meshi to model some props that I thought would fit well into the environment. I'm personally really good at creating sci-fi geometric models, but when it comes to organic shapes, I struggle a lot. So, I prompted Meshi to generate a ton of organic assets. I then brought them all into Unity and just began spamming them around the map. And with that, the level already felt more complete. But yeah, unfortunately, that was all I was able to do this month, so all of the interiors are still empty. Thankfully though, we've already created interior environments, and so my focus from here on out is going to be completely on enemies. I'm honestly super excited to do this because I've been thinking about enemies for the last 3 months, and I have so many cool ideas I just can't wait to bring to life. But yeah, thank you so much for sticking with me until the very end, and I'll see you in the next one.